Hi, I'm Backwoods Bob, and I'm here today to talk to you about everybody's favorite fire starter, matches. Matches are an interesting story. The modern match was first created in 1836, and they were called Loco Focos. They didn't catch on, they weren't widely used because they were very unstable. They would tend to explode whenever you tried to strike them, so they didn't turn out too well. The matches we know it didn't become a household item until after World War I, when returning soldiers from Europe had used them to be lighting their cigarettes and starting fires and stuff. And it really caught on after that. Interesting story is in the early 1900s, there was a man named Ishi that reportedly, he was the last Native American from a remote tribe in Northern California. And I think he was caught stealing or something, and anyhow, once they figured out he was like the last of his tribe, they called him the last wild American Indian in the continental U.S. And an anthropologist kind of took him in and moved him to the Bay Area, California. Several months later, he'd learned to speak a little English and everything, and they asked him what he was most impressed with about modern civilization. And of all the inventions and gadgets and gizmos that he had seen since he came to the so-called modern world, his answer was simply matches. So matches are a great thing. I'm sure everybody, probably almost everybody, has matches in their camping gear, backpack, emergency kit, survival gear, your bug out bag. You know, everybody has some form of matches with them. To everybody I've ever talked to. And there's about as many types of matches on the market today as there are chins in a Chinese phone book. You know, I have various types laid out here, as you can see. I have the strike on box matches. I have strike anywhere matches. Your standard matchbooks, windproof, waterproof matches, some storm matches. You know, so there's a wide variety. So I know what you're thinking. You know, which one do I pick, Bob? Well, here's what I look for in a match. First and foremost, the match has got to be easy to light. In a real survival situation, especially if it's cold and wet weather, that's not always an easy task. Your hands kind of freeze up, and anybody's ever been out in long cold weather in the woods knows what I'm talking about. Your hands don't want to move well, so they got to be easy to light. The second thing you want is you want your match to burn as long as possible. Now, the longer the burn time, the better the chances of starting a fire. And the third thing that you want is you want a match that can withstand the elements. You know, in my opinion, a match that's hard to light or just won't stay burning in damp or wet conditions, it's useless to carry in any outdoor situation. So that narrows your choices down considerably. You know, it kind of does away with your standard matchbooks and pretty much limits you to the windproof, waterproof, and the storm matches. And there's nothing wrong with using any of those matches. However, I find they can be a bit pricey for what you get, and they're not always as good as advertised. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own matches, you know, how you can make your own Backwoods Bob Superstorm matches, and they'll outburn anything that you can buy. And they're cheaper to make. Alright, the items that you're going to need to make my Superstorm matches is, first and foremost, you're going to need a heat source. I like to use a coffee mug warmer. You could use a hot plate or a stove. If you use those items though, be careful not to have the heat too high. It's better to melt the wax slowly. And speaking of wax, the next thing you're going to need is some paraffin wax. And it don't necessarily have to be paraffin. You can use old candles of any kind that you want. I use this golf wax and get it at Walmart. Most any department store will have it. So just get that. It doesn't cost that much. It's about, I think, $3 or $4 for a pound of it, and a pound, you can do a lot of matches with that. You find it in like the canning section where you'd find mason jars and that sort of things, where I found that. The next thing that you're going to need is a container to melt your wax in. I use this old coffee mug because it fits on the coffee mug warmer. You could use a pot or any type of a dish of some sort, I suppose. But if you're using your wife's good cookware, that's probably not such a good idea, because even the best Superstorm match isn't worth spending a few nights sleeping on the couch. Last and foremost, you're going to need a match. Now, I find the large wooden matches Either the Strike Anywhere or Strike on Box are good choices and probably the best thing that you can use for that. Paper matches really won't work for this process. And it can be really hard to find these Strike Anywhere matches nowadays. I tend to, I only found them at the local hardware store. I've heard in some states you can't hardly find them at all. If you can't find these other Strike on Box matches will work just fine. But these new style Strike Anywhere matches are, they're green. They have a green head on them instead of a red. Excuse me. All right, and then, you know, I prefer the Strike Anywhere matches if you can find them. And that's just for the simple fact that you have more options on lighting the match. You don't have to rely on the striker pad on the box of the matches and have to carry that with you. And speaking of with that, I usually use a piece of sandpaper that I have glued to the outside of the container I keep my matches in. If you have to Strike Anywhere matches and you do that, make sure that you put the sandpaper on the outside of your container or somewhere else on your gear, because if you have it on the inside, you can start your backpack on fire or your pocket on fire, and that's not a good thing in the outdoors. Another thing you're going to need is a small sheet of wax paper like I have laid out right here. You're also are going to need a paper towel or two. I use the Select a Size paper towels. You could use a regular paper towel, but you'll have to cut it in half. It just saves a step, just makes it a little bit easier to make. The matches I'm going to make, I've also seen made with toilet paper. And I've made them with toilet paper and paper towels, and I've tested one against the other. And I find the paper towels burn longer and are easier to work with when making the matches. So to me, they're a much better choice. Once you have all your supplies, the first thing that you're going to need to do is take your matches and you want to inspect them, because not all matches are created equal. And as you can see, you get a wide variety of different matches out of the same box. They're not all the same. In fact, you can even see that one right there is even deformed right there. What you want to look for is the ones with the biggest, most robust heads on them. They will work the best, they will light the best. And you'll find plenty of them in the box. You can save the other ones for just stuff that you do around your house. So after you inspect your matches, the next thing you want to do is you take your paper towel and you need to cut it into strips. And what you're going to do is take it the lengthways here, and you're going to take one of your matches and you're going to measure the length of the matchstick. But what you want to do is you want to try to leave about a 1/4 of an inch from the match head to where the paper towel is going to start. And you're just going to cut off strips along this paper towel. Now I did some earlier, and this is what you end up with. You end up with these strips to wrap around the match. Alright, then after you got your towel done, then another useful thing that you can have handy, I don't really use it much anymore because I find I just use my fingers, but a pair of tweezers can be used for the same process that I'm going to show you here. The first thing that you want to do is you want to take two of your matches, and you're going to try to find two matches that will line up that are pretty even, because you'll find that's another thing when you inspect your matches. Some of them got very crooked sticks on, and they probably aren't going to work very well for this. The process I'm going to show is using two matches, a double match. You can use a single match for this, and I've done plenty of those. I just find that the double match will burn 2 to 3 minutes longer, and also it gives you the double potential for striking to get the match lit if you're in adverse conditions. So what you're going to do is you're going to line up your match, and you're just going to take it, dip it into your wax just for a couple seconds, pull it out. You can even dip it a second time if you want real quick. Shake off any excess. You're going to hold it for a few seconds to let that wax start to set up. And then what you're going to do is lay it on your wax paper. Now before going to the next step, you're going to need to wait probably 5 minutes or so. Let that wax harden a little bit. But through the miracle of video here, I did some earlier. And this is what you come out with. It just hardens, and it just basically just sticks the two matches together. Once you have it to this point, then you're ready to get started on the actual making of this match. And what you want to do is take a piece of your paper towel and have it ready. You're going to take your match, holding it by the match heads, quickly dip it into your wax, and you're going to pull it out, shake off the excess, and then you're going to get it started here on your paper towel. The reason to do that is it'll stick. And then you're just going to roll it as tight as you can, not overly tight, and you're just going to roll this up. It works best for me rolling towards myself, but if you find that you do better rolling it away from yourself, by all means, however you want to do it. And you're going to roll this up until you got it the whole way rolled up, and you're going to pinch it, and then you end up with this, and you're going to take it and dip it into your wax just a couple seconds, pull it out, and you're going to push that down and let that seal. This will help keep the paper towel from unraveling when you're dipping this. And you're going to do the same thing with this side. Just a few seconds, shake it off, hold it, and just hold it here for a couple seconds. And then what you're going to do is you're going to re-dip this whole thing. Hold it by the match heads, dip this thing in, and you're going to hold it there for 10 to 15 seconds. Another interesting thing you can do with this wax, if it's in a coffee cup like this, you can melt it. If you go to the craft store and get yourself a wick, you can make yourself a candle. Just let it harden in there, and you could add scents to it, or whatever you wanted to do. Different herbs or whatnot. So you pull it out like that, and you end up with this. Lay it onto your wax paper. Now, before you go to the next step, that needs to sit there for 20 to 30 minutes. It needs to harden up a little bit. And again, through the magic and miracle of video, I did this one here earlier, and what you end up with is something that looks like this. And it's hard to the touch, and it's ready for the next step. So what you're going to do is the same thing as you did before. You're going to get your paper towel ready. You're going to take it, quickly dip it into the wax, pull it out, shake off the excess. Going to start your paper towel. And not all these will turn out perfect or even. It's important to try to cut your paper towel as straight as possible. That'll help some. But if it's a little bit crooked and off, it'll work just fine. As long as you have a little bit of space between the match head and where the paper towel starts. Because if you get it too close there, it interferes with the lighting process, and the initial burn of getting it to start to burn doesn't work so well. So again, you're going to hold this and pinch it, dip the end in, couple seconds, pull it out, pinch that over, dip the other end in, same thing, pull it out, you're going to pinch that over, hold it for just a few seconds so it sticks, so it's not going to come unraveled. And sometimes they'll come unraveled anyhow, and if that happens, you just got to do it over, or sometimes I just throw it away and start over. And you hold that in there. Again, 10 to 20 seconds, probably not more than 20. And the reason you're doing this is it's soaking into the paper towel, and it helps with the burning process. Gives you more wax to burn. Pull it out, you're going to shake off the excess, lay it on your wax paper. Now, if possible, I let those for a couple hours to harden. I got some I did earlier. I got some of these, I even have some of these old ones. And as you see, I had all these other ones in different stages. Some of them are finished, some of them are get ready to get a second coat and stuff that I have over here. A lot of these here were single matches. I do carry some of the single matches sometimes too. If I don't think the fire is going to be particularly hard to light or whatever, I'll just use a single match because I don't need, a long burn time. Well, they still burn long, don't get me wrong. Those single matches will burn about 8 minutes. And the double matches anywhere from 10 to 12. So, but when you get finished, you end up with a match that is pretty hard. I mean, it's very hard. It's waterproof. Granted, they do take up some space, more space than a normal match. But I guarantee you, if you're out in the middle of the woods and you're caught in a sleet storm and you're trying to get a fire started, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a book of matches like this, or would you rather have something like this that you know is going to light and burn no matter what? And they'll even burn till it gets to be a blue hot flame. So there you have it. That's Backwoods Bob Super Storm matches. You can make your very own. It's very cheap to make, easy to make, a little time consuming. But it's worth it. They'll keep for a long time, but I would recommend that you probably every year, if you keep them in your backpack or something, maybe replace them every year. Depending on how you have them stored and stuff, they can get damaged and they will deteriorate over time. So put fresh ones in every year and you should be good to go. I'd like to thank you for tuning into our channel and watching this video. Please subscribe. If you have any comments or critiques about the video, feel free to leave them. And I want everybody to always remember that studied information becomes knowledge, and practiced knowledge becomes wisdom. And wisdom is your most important tool in any survival situation.